I posted that photo because I wanted him to see it, not my husband but Marcus. Everyone thinks I'm some heartless cheater who threw away a marriage for a thirst trap, but that's not what happened. At least that's not all that happened. My husband filed papers before I could even delete the post. 23 comments from our mutual friends, his sister calling me a sociopath, and now I'm living in my cousin's guest room wondering if I'll ever see my dog again. The worst part. I still check my phone hopping. Marcus liked it. That's the part nobody gets. Here's what I'm going to tell you, the whole truth, including the part about the parking garage, the deleted texts, and why I actually took that picture in the first place. But you have to understand how I got there, because it didn't start with a photo. It started with a notification. The notification was from Instagram. Marcus had liked a picture of my coffee from 3 weeks ago, the one where I'd captioned it, Monday Fuel with a yawning emoji. Nothing special, just my regular morning ritual. But Marcus never liked my posts when I was married to David. Not for the 4 years we'd been together. He'd vanished from my digital life after our breakup, which had been clean as surgical cuts. No blocking, no drama, just mutual ghosting. That felt like a door cracking open. David and I were in our living room when I saw it, him scrolling through his phone for takeout, me sprawled on the couch in what he called my depression hoodie, oversized, stained with last week's pasta sauce, the one I'd refused to throw out. Thai or pizza? He asked without looking up. I didn't answer. I was staring at Marcus's username, that stupid handle he'd made in college, Marcus the Magnificent, still using it at 34. You okay? David finally glanced over and I quick switched to my email. Just work stuff, I said, which wasn't technically lying since I was already drafting how I'd respond to Marcus in my head. Something witty, something that showed I'd moved on but was still interesting. Not thirsty. Definitely not thirsty. I settled on liking one of his photos back, a sunset from his trip to Denver last month. Harmless. People do that all the time. The problem was, I then spent 47 minutes going through his entire feed, back to when we'd broken up. He looked good, better than good. He looked like the version of himself I'd always imagined he'd become. The next morning, Marcus DM'd me. Hey stranger, saw you liked my pic. How's married life treating you? Just like that. Casual as asking about the weather. I typed 3 different responses before settling on it's good, busy, you know how it is. Which was the most dishonest thing I'd said all week, because things weren't good. They hadn't been good for months. David and I had fallen into this pattern where we existed in the same space but never actually occupied it together. He'd take work calls in his office, I'd binge shows in the living room, and we'd meet in the kitchen for perfunctory kisses that landed on cheeks instead of mouths. I told myself it was just a phase, that all marriages have winters. But winter had lasted 18 months. Marcus and I started messaging daily. Nothing explicit at first, memes, comments about mutual friends, remember when stories from college, the digital equivalent of catching up over coffee. Harmless, that's what I kept telling myself, completely harmless. David noticed I was on my phone more but he just said, your screen time must be through the roof, in that neutral way he had, the way that meant he'd observed something but wouldn't ask about it. My cousin Jenna was the first person who asked questions. We met for drinks after work, and she watched me laugh at something Marcus sent. Who's that? She asked, her voice too casual. Oh, just an old friend from school. She swirled her wine, didn't look at me. The one you dated? My thumb hovered over the keyboard. Briefly, years ago. She let the silence stretch until I filled it. It's nothing, we're just friends. That's when I should have stopped. That's the moment I look back on and want to punch myself in the face. Because instead of putting my phone down, instead of telling Marcus I needed boundaries, I sent him a picture. Not of me at first, just a funny sign I'd seen on my walk home. But he responded with you always had the best eye for the weird stuff, and something about that validation, that specific praise, cracked open a hunger I didn't know I'd been starving. I started posting more on my stories. Careful things, my outfit before work cute but not trying too hard. A glass of wine at happy hour carefully cropped to look like I was with friends when I was alone, my reflection in the subway window moody, artistic. I watched who watched them. Marcus always did. David rarely did. The photo that ruined everything was actually 2 years old. I'd found it while deleting pictures to free up storage, a shot from my friend Becky's wedding where Marcus and I were dancing. My back was to the camera, his hand rested on my waist, and I was looking over my shoulder at the lens, with this expression that could only be described as pure, unfiltered want. We'd argued 30 minutes after that picture was taken, and broken up a week later. I told myself I was just feeling nostalgic. That there was something poetic about capturing a moment of happiness before everything fell apart. I didn't filter it, didn't edit out the timestamp that clearly showed it was from 2021. I just posted it with the caption, "Throwback to when we were young and dumb," with a laughing emoji. Posted it at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday when David was sound asleep and Marcus was active online. The first like came from Marcus within 3 minutes. Then a comment, "We had our moments." Then a DM, "You look incredible in that dress." Always did. I screenshotted the DM and saved it to a folder labeled Work Invoices, because I am nothing if not predictable in my stupidity. I read it 6 times before I fell asleep, smiling into my pillow like a teenager. David snored beside me, oblivious, and I felt this thrill of having something that was just mine, something secret and exciting and completely detached from the person who'd become my roommate in all but name. When I woke up, the post had 47 likes. 7 comments. Among them, my sister-in-law Laura had written, "Cute pic. Is that David?" She didn't recognize Marcus, which made sense. She'd only met him once, briefly, at our wedding. I'd introduced him as an old friend and thought I was being so clever. I didn't correct her. That was my first real sin of commission, not the posting, not the DM, but the letting someone believe my husband was the man in a photo where I looked like I was about to tear someone's clothes off. David was still sleeping, his back to me, the alarm about to go off. I could have woken him up right then, shown him the post, explained it, deleted it. Instead, I screenshotted Laura's comment and texted it to Marcus with "LOL, she thinks you're my husband." He responded immediately. If only. 2 words that landed like a match in dry grass. I left for work before David woke up, claiming an early meeting. Really, I just wanted to ride the subway and feel the hum of my phone in my pocket, the anticipation of Marcus's next message. I was high on it, on the possibility that someone saw me as desirable, as interesting, as worth pursuing. David hadn't looked at me like that in years. Not since before the miscarriage. Not since before we'd become these people who shared groceries and utility bills but not lives. At work, I kept my phone face down on my desk, but I could feel it. My coworker Priya asked if I was feeling okay. I must have jumped when it buzzed. Marcus had sent a picture of his own. Nothing scandalous, just him at his desk making a silly face. "Current mood watching my Monday meeting," he'd captioned it. I saved it. I don't know why I saved it. Maybe because it felt like proof that this was real, that someone was thinking of me. David texted at noon. "Hey, we still on for dinner with the Hendersons tonight?" I'd forgot. Double dates with his work friends, the kind of evening where I'd smile and nod while they talked about quarterly earnings and charter schools. "Yep," I replied, adding a thumbs-up emoji that felt like a lie. I posted another story that afternoon, my coffee cup with a heart drawn in the foam. Marcus replied to it instantly. David didn't see it. I checked. The Hendersons' dinner was exactly what I expected. David talked about his promotion, I talked about my marketing campaigns, and we performed our roles perfectly. The happy couple, the team, the unit. I drank 2 glasses of wine and checked my phone under the table. Marcus had posted a story of his own, a beer at a bar, the caption "Needed after today." I liked it. Immediately, without thinking about who could see. On the drive home, David asked about work. I gave him bullet points while scrolling through my feed. "You're really glued to that thing lately," he said, his voice carrying that neutral tone again. "Just keeping up with campaigns," I lied. He didn't push. He never pushed. That night while David slept, I scrolled back through every message Marcus and I had exchanged. There were hundreds now. None of them explicit, all of them intimate. We talked about our college days, our shared friends, our current jobs. He told me about his last relationship ending, how he'd felt adrift. I told him about feeling like David and I were roommates. "That sucks," he'd written. "You deserve to feel wanted." I'd read that sentence 23 times. The next morning, I posted the throwback photo, the one that would end my marriage. I need you to understand it wasn't random. I chose it specifically because of how I looked in it, because of how Marcus looked at me in it. Because it captured a version of myself that I'd lost somewhere between David's 12-hour workdays and my own quiet resentment. I wanted to be that girl again, the one who was seen. The comments rolled in. Mutual friends from college started tagging Marcus. "OMG you two, an iconic couple, and bring back MARCUS. People who didn't know I was married, or who'd forgotten, or who just didn't care." The algorithm pushed it hard, maybe because of all the engagement, maybe because fate has a sick sense of humor. David saw it at lunch. I know because he texted me, "We need to talk, tonight." No emoji, no hey, just that. My stomach dropped into my shoes. I typed 4 different responses before settling on "Is everything okay?" He left me on read for 4 hours. During those 4 hours, I didn't delete the post. I told myself I was standing my ground, that I had nothing to hide, that David was overreacting. I watched the like count climb past 200. Marcus's comment, "We had our moments," got 34 likes of its own. I felt sick and thrilled simultaneously. This was the most seen I'd felt in years. When I got home, David was sitting at the kitchen table with his laptop open. He didn't look angry, he looked exhausted. "Do you want to explain this?" he asked, turning the screen toward me. It was my post, blown up to full size. Marcus's hand on my waist, my face, the timestamp from 2 years ago. "It's just a throwback," I said, hearing how weak it sounded. "From Becky's wedding, I was feeling nostalgic." "That's Marcus," David said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, but don't." He closed the laptop. "Don't lie to me, not about this." Something in his voice was different. Not the neutral observer tone, not the husband who'd let things slide for months. This was final. I felt it in my bones. "It's innocent," I insisted. "We're just friends." David laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Friends, right, that's why you posted it at midnight, that's why you didn't tell me you were talking to him." The room tilted. "What?" He pulled out his phone, showed me a screenshot, Laura's comment. "Is that David?" And my response, just a smiling emoji, not a correction, not "no, that's my ex," just a smile. "My sister sent this to me," he said. "She thought it was weird you didn't clarify." I had nothing, no defense. The lies I'd told myself, harmless, innocent, just friends, crumbled into dust. "I didn't mean anything by it," I whispered. "The problem," David said, his voice steady and terrible, "is that I don't believe you, and I don't think you believe you either." He stood up, closed his laptop. "I'm staying at Mike's tonight. I'll be back tomorrow to pick up some things. We'll figure out next steps." Next steps. The panic finally hit. "David, please, it's just a picture." He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw the man I'd married, the one who'd held my hand through my dad's funeral, who'd brought me soup when I had pneumonia, who'd cried with me when we lost the baby. I saw all of that, and I saw it die in his eyes. "No, Rachel," he said. "It was never just a picture." He left. I stood in our kitchen, surrounded by the life we'd built, the Le Creuset we couldn't afford but bought anyway, the magnets from our honeymoon in Iceland, the grocery list in his neat handwriting, and I told myself he'd be back. He'd cool down, he'd understand. I checked my phone. Marcus had seen my post, seen David's exit perhaps because he'd sent a DM, "Everything okay?" 3 dots appeared as he typed again. "Want to talk?" I should have blocked him then. Should have deleted the post, deleted his number, deleted everything. Instead, I responded, he saw it. Then, because I couldn't stop myself, "He's staying at a friend's tonight." Marcus's reply came instantly, "Come over. We can talk, no pressure." I stared at those words for 30 minutes. Thought about getting in my car, driving to his apartment, letting him comfort me. Thought about how easy it would be to make David the villain, to tell myself this was fate, that Marcus and I were meant to find our way back to each other. I didn't go, but I thought about it hard enough that it felt like I had. That intention, that moment of want, it was almost worse than if I'd actually gone. David came back the next morning while I was at work. He texted me, "I took Rufus and some clothes. I'll send you the rest of the logistics later." Rufus, our dog. The one we'd adopted together, who slept between us every night. I had to pull over on the side of the road because I couldn't see through the tears. When I got to the office, Priya took one look at my face and said, "Oh honey, what happened?" I told her David and I were taking a break. "Because of that post?" she asked, and I saw it in her eyes, the same judgment I'd seen in Laura's. "It's complicated," I said, which is what people say when they're the villain of their own story. My phone buzzed, not Marcus. "My mother," David called me, her text read. "He wants me to know he's available if I need to talk to someone about the separation." My mother. He'd called my mother before I'd even told her we were separated. The shame was so hot it burned. I posted a story that night, just a black screen with the text, "Rough day," and a frowning emoji. I told myself it was for my friends, for support. Really, it was for Marcus. He replied with a heart reaction. No words, just a heart. It felt like a lifeline and a noose at the same time. The papers came 3 days later. David had filed for divorce. The citation listed irreconcilable differences, but the timeline was clear, filed the morning after he saw the post. He'd moved fast, decisively, as if he'd been waiting for a reason. Maybe he had. My lawyer called it clean and straightforward. No kids, no property disputes beyond the condo. Rufus would stay with David since his name was on the adoption papers. "You can contest it," she said, "but given the circumstances." She trailed off. "Given the circumstances, the picture, the comments, the public nature of my betrayal." Jenna showed up at my door with wine and a face that said she was prepared to be disappointed in me. Tell me you didn't sleep with him, she said immediately. Tell me this is just you being an idiot, not a cheater. I didn't sleep with him, I said, and it was true. Technically, physically. But I could see her calculating the other ways I'd been unfaithful, the emotional affair, the secrets, the performance of availability I'd been putting on for Marcus, and the performance of marriage I'd been half-heartedly giving David. But you wanted to, Jenna said, not a question. I couldn't answer. That was answer enough. The story got out. Not just the divorce, but why. David's sister posted something vague but pointed about loyalty being more than a word and tagged me. I blocked her, but screenshots spread. My DMs filled with people I'd barely spoken to since college offering support that smelled like gossip hunger. Marcus's name started appearing in these messages. Is it true you reconnected? Are you guys? I stopped opening them. I finally deleted the post. Too late. The internet is forever, and David's lawyer had already printed it, along with every comment, every like, every DM I'd sent Marcus. The discovery phase was going to be brutal. My lawyer warned me that if David's team could prove an affair, emotional or physical, it could affect the settlement. But it wasn't an affair, I insisted. We just talked. She gave me a look that said she'd heard every version of this story. You posted a suggestive photo of you with another man, you solicited his attention, you hid their communication from your spouse. A judge will call that an affair. The word landed like a verdict. Affair. I'd had an affair. I'd never kissed Marcus. Never touched him. But I'd given him the parts of me I was supposed to reserve for my husband. My attention, my vulnerability, my desire to be wanted. Marcus kept messaging. Thinking of you and hope you're holding up, and finally the one that broke me, maybe this happened for a reason. Maybe we're supposed to be together. I read it 41 times, trying to find comfort in it, trying to believe that this devastation could be justified by a greater purpose. Instead, I saw it for what it was: opportunistic. He didn't want me. He wanted the idea of me, the version from that photo, the girl who'd looked at him like he hung the moon. He didn't want the woman who'd become so starved for attention that she'd burn down her life for a digital heart reaction. I blocked him, finally, but only after I'd screenshotted all our messages first, saving them to that same work invoices folder, as if I needed proof that I'd mattered to someone, even if it was just for a moment. The parking garage. I promised I'd tell you about that. 3 weeks before I posted the photo, I ran into Marcus at the mall parking garage. Literally ran into him. Our cars were parked next to each other. We'd both been Christmas shopping. We stood there in the cold for 27 minutes. He told me about his new job, his recent breakup. I told him about David's promotion, how proud I was. Lies of omission mostly. He hugged me when we parted. A real hug, not the perfunctory kind David gave me before bed. I could smell his cologne, feel his breath on my neck. I've missed you, he whispered, and I whispered back, me too. That was the truth I carried. That was the seed that grew into everything else. David's lawyer subpoenaed my phone records. They had the parking garage on security footage. They had everything. The narrative was clear. I'd reconnected with my ex, met him in secret, then posted a photo to publicly declare my feelings. The divorce went from clean to contentious overnight. David wanted the condo. He wanted Rufus. He wanted to be compensated for the emotional distress of my humiliation. My lawyer told me to settle. You won't win this in front of a judge, she said. The optics are terrible. Optics. As if this was just a PR problem. I signed the papers. I gave him the condo, kept my $401k, and got 1 weekend a month with Rufus. David got everything that had made our life a life. I got a guest room at my cousin's, and a story that would follow me forever. The thing is, I thought the photo was the worst of it. The public humiliation, the comments, the way my own family looked at me like I'd become someone they didn't recognize. But the worst part came later, after the papers were signed, after I'd started therapy that I couldn't really afford. My therapist asked me to describe my marriage before the post. We were comfortable, I said. We were settled. She asked me to describe the last time I felt truly seen by David. I couldn't answer. Not because I didn't remember, but because the answer was too painful. It had been during the miscarriage, when we'd lost the baby at 12 weeks. He'd held me while I bled, while I cried, while I fell apart. He'd seen me at my most broken, and he'd stayed. But after that, something shifted. I stopped being his wife and became something to manage, someone fragile who might break. He handled me with kid gloves, and I let him. I became the ghost of myself, and he became my caretaker, and we both forgot how to be lovers. Marcus represented feeling alive again. Not because he was special, but because he was new, and newness doesn't have history. Newness doesn't remember the miscarriage. Newness doesn't know how to be careful with you. I posted that photo because I wanted to feel seen. But I posted it where David would find it because I wanted him to see that I could still be that girl. I wanted him to fight for me, to call me out, to demand I delete it and block Marcus and remember my vows. I wanted any reaction other than the neutral tone, the observation without engagement. Instead, he gave me exactly what I'd been too cowardly to ask for an ending. The irony is brutal. I wanted to feel wanted, and I got it. Our mutual friends chose sides. Most chose David's, which was fair. Jenna stayed neutral but distant. Marcus moved on to someone else within 2 months, posting pictures of her with captions about my person. The internet moves fast, and I was just a blip in his feed. But David, he met someone 6 months after the divorce was finalized. Her name is Claire, she's a teacher. Rufus is in her profile picture. They look happy in that effortless way that cuts through my chest like a blade. David's sister posted about them, so great to see my brother with someone who truly values him. She didn't tag me, she didn't need to. I'm telling you this now because yesterday I saw them, David and Claire walking Rufus in the park near what used to be our condo. I was in my car, eating lunch from a drive-through bag, and there they were. She threw a ball, Rufus ran, David watched her with an expression I hadn't seen him use in years. Pride, joy, the look of a man who feels lucky. And I understood, finally, what I'd actually posted that night. It wasn't a photo, it was a cry for help that sounded like a betrayal. It was me saying I am not happy in the most destructive way possible. I didn't want Marcus. I wanted to want my life again, I just didn't know how to say it. David's lawyer had asked me during mediation if I had any regrets. I'd given him the performance of contrition, the carefully scripted apology. But my real regret is this: I wish I'd posted a picture of David and me instead. A recent one. I wish I'd put that same energy into being seen by the man who'd chosen me, every day, even when I was invisible to myself. But I didn't. And here we are. The internet remembers everything, and my ex-husband has found someone who doesn't need to post old photos to feel seen. She's present. She's real. I'm still in my cousin's guest room. Still checking my phone, but now it's just for job alerts and the occasional picture of Rufus that David sends me out of pity or obligation. I don't know which, I don't think it matters anymore. So judge me if you want. Call me a cheater, a homewrecker, a selfish idiot who destroyed her marriage for a like. You're not wrong. But you're also not seeing the whole picture. The photo was just the frame. The real betrayal happened months earlier when I stopped showing up for my marriage and started performing for an audience of one ex-boyfriend and 300 followers. David knew. He always knew. He just waited for me to make it impossible to ignore. That's the part nobody gets. The divorce wasn't a reaction. It was a relief, for both of us. And I posted the evidence of why it needed to happen, one flirty picture at a time.